Hey everybody, it is time to talk about pruning your hydrangeas. And I specifically say talk about because it is only the second week in October. Our hydrangeas still look good and they haven't gone dormant yet. And so you don't want to do a hard prune quite yet. Now you could do a little deadheading, that's picking the flowers or cutting off branches, but we do want to minimize the amount of serious trimming we do on them because every time you trim a hydrangea during its active growth time, you're encouraging new growth. And we want to save that growing energy for the springtime. So you're going to want to avoid trimming as much as you can right now. So that said, I want to give you as much information as I can about pruning hydrangeas. I'm going to try to give you everything I know. We've had a kind of a strange year because it is unseasonably warm. It's 90 degrees right now in the greenhouse, so if I'm sweating, please ignore it. And also, we haven't had frost yet, which is unusual for our area this late in the season, but we're not complaining because the plants are still looking somewhat decent, so that's a good thing. Anyway, the first thing we're going to want to do is identify your hydrangea, and there's a couple ways of doing that. So we can identify hydrangeas somewhat by their leaf patterns. You're going to see the macrophylla is also known as the big leaf hydrangea. It tends to have the biggest leaf, but it can sometimes be mistaken when you get into the arborescent variety, which is the Incredibles and the Annabelles and that type of thing. One of the big things with the big leaf ones is that they do have a little more texture in the leaf, but you're not going to be able to tell that unless you have another one to compare it to, and they tend to have a little thicker leaf. But usually the flower is the best way to identify a hydrangea. So the flowers on the macrophylla hydrangea are those beautiful pink or blue or purple ones that just stand out in the garden. Usually the petals have those beautiful little kind of a triangular tip on them versus some of the rounded edges on some of the other varieties. Here we have that thicker leaf, but you're not always going to be able to tell by the leaf. This variety benefits from minimal pruning. So although the endless summer varieties, which come in the blue pots, do grow on old and new wood, the less you trim them, usually that means the more flowers you're going to get. So if you haven't been getting many flowers on your endless summer or your other macrophylla varieties, it's probably because you've been pruning it. And if it's not an endless summer, it may be a variety that only grows on old wood, which means that it's only going to flower on unpruned branches. So that's something to keep in mind. So this one, if you have this variety, make sure that you prune it minimally. Now, if you do have some crazy branches growing out like these here, I would definitely prune these back. You're going to want to get any kind of strangely growing ones out of the way now. It's a good idea. And then, but you are going to notice that you're going to start seeing signs of the new growth for next year because these only grow on old wood. Basically, they're setting their buds right now, which is kind of an interesting feature because they are a little different than some of the other varieties. The next variety is the Arborescent variety. Now, these are your Incredibles, your Annabelles, your Invincibles, and these tend to have those big ball-shaped or dome-shaped flower heads. They're usually quite large unless you have one of the dwarf varieties. They're normally white, but a lot of pink varieties are coming on the market as well, and these are going to be ones that open pink or white, and they keep that color, and then they'll kind of change color as the season goes on. Now, there's some debate as to the best way to prune these. So some people say trim them right down to the ground. You leave basically just little stubs when you trim them back. Other people, like we, tend to leave 6 inches. Other people say only trim back 20%. So the fact of the matter is you're probably going to have success any of the ways that you trim these. So it's kind of up to you how you do that, but chances are you're not going to have any problem with these. These tend to be the easiest ones, but they do benefit from some pruning. The third type is the Paniculata or panicle shape. That would be the cone-shaped flowers. You'll notice that they taper from wider at the bottom and get narrower on the top. They also open from the bottom up. You notice they have kind of more of those rounded petals, and they have 3 or 4 petals on each floret forming the flower head. They also have the smallest leaves of all the hydrangeas, so they can be a little easier to spot. They're also more of a woody shrub, so you're going to notice definitely woody trunks or stems on those. Now for trimming these, usually you go back about 20%. So usually you just cut below the flower heads. I'll show you outside though how we handle ours on some more mature plants because they can be a little easier to spot. So this one here is a vanilla strawberry. You can see it had loads of flowers on it this year. And the first thing I'm going to do is look at maybe where the cuts were last year. So when I look inside here, you're going to see here's where one of the cuts were. And right below that is where it branched out and more branches with flowers came out of it. So whenever you cut your hydrangea, usually you get 2, sometimes even 3 branches off of that. Now this one, normally we would cut it very close to where the leaf sets are. And so like on this one we could cut it right here and then we'd have branching coming out from there, but we actually took a shortcut and we used a hedge trimmer to trim ours, because when you're doing a high volume of hydrangeas and other shrubs, sometimes it's easier just take the hedger out and trim them back. Once the leaves start coming out, you don't even notice these sticks that stick up, but if you're doing it kind of by hand with your bypass trimmers, you're going to probably go closer to the leaf set. But anyway, so you can see you can go right back to trimming right at that same level. So you could trim these back here. You could even go lower if you wanted to keep it more compact and full. It's kind of up to you, but basically you're going to cut back all these flower heads and you're going to end up with kind of that bare plant and work from there. People tend to get a little nervous when it comes to their tree-form hydrangeas, but don't worry, all the tree-form hydrangeas are the Paniculata variety. So you're going to prune them just like you would your regular cone-shaped or panicle type hydrangeas. So I'm going to show you a little bit on this one, kind of how I would handle this one. I can't show you exactly how we'd prune it because I'm not going to do that early pruning. I'm going to wait till it loses its leaves and it's completely dormant before we go and touch that. But I do want to show you so that way you get at least some confidence when the time comes. So here's the canopy of our hydrangea tree. You can see where last year's cut was right here. And then this one ended up with about 3 branches coming off of it, and all of these flower heads came off of that one cut. So you can see how valuable the pruning can be. And also, like, this one has a lot of flower heads. For us in the winter time, a lot of snow could potentially break one of those branches. When they get more mature, they tend to hold up better, so this one we probably wouldn't have trouble with, but it doesn't hurt to cut them off now if you have a lot of snow. Now over here, this is not the tree form, but it actually is about the same height as it. Same story. I'm going to just trim this back, so I'm probably going to cut off most of the stuff right on the top there and then clean it up around the edge. Basically so all those flower heads are gone and it's just a tidier shrub, so that next year it's going to be a nice full bush again and we're not going to have any trouble with it, and it's going to be loaded with flowers once again. And over here we do have kind of a sad looking variation of the Annabelles, and this is the ones that we would cut right down to say 6 inches. So basically coming in and just giving it a chop. But these are pretty easy to deal with. Again, you can just trim them back 6 inches, 20 inches, whatever you like. And this is another example of another Paniculata, but this one has more of that lace cap. So there's a lot of variety in the Paniculata flower heads. So when in doubt, it's probably going to be a Paniculata. If it's white and turns pink, you're pretty much sure it's going to be a Paniculata variety. Now there are 2 outliers in the hydrangea department as far as the ones that we carry, and those are the Can-Do series. So those are kind of hybrids of different types, and we generally just treat those as if they're macrophyllas. So we only cut off the flower heads. So this one here is Can-Do Let's Dance. This one has been sending up flowers all season, which is incredible considering when we got it, it was about the size of like my 2 fingers. And so you can see how much growth it's had, and the fact that it just keeps sending up flowers is just incredible. And it has a beautiful large flower head, and we're just really impressed with this Let's Dance Can-Do. And then its cousin, Let's Dance Ariba, is right over here, another variety. Now this one actually gets more, looks like that, but you can see these were such small plants, and the fact that they're blooming already this year and have grown this much, it's a really good sign for how they're going to perform next year. So I wanted to show you those as well, because we will have them next year, and they are completely new and really beautiful. Hopefully these tips give you the courage and the know-how to prune like a pro. Remember, just relax and let it happen. There's always a little bit of anxiety the first time you're doing something, especially when it comes to cutting parts of plants away. You're going to be just fine. Just give it that gentle pruning. Unless it's the Annabelle, you can do as much as you want. And from there, you're going to have great plants next year. So remember, the work you're doing when you're pruning is going to help you next season. So let that be your guide. Thanks very much for watching. And if you do have any questions, feel free to either leave a comment to the video or email us or give us a call. We'll be happy to make any suggestions or try to help you out if you're struggling with any of this. Good luck, and I'll talk to you all very soon.